After the call, Ikenna was heartbroken. He sat down on the floor, his mind racing with thoughts of where he might have gone wrong with Chisom. A few minutes later, Chisom came home. Ikenna was already furious and demanding answers. "Where have you been, Chisom? Where do you go from Fridays to Sundays?" Ikenna asked, his voice trembling with anger. "Please calm down, Ikenna. Please calm down. It's not what you think. I was with my friends. We always take ourselves out on weekends," Chisom said, trying to stay calm. Ikenna laughed. "Chisom, you are lying. Who are these friends? See, I may not know the truth now, but I will find out. And when I do, you will be sorry. Chisom, you would be so sorry for yourself," Ikenna said, his frustration boiling over. They went back and forth, arguing. Their two daughters, Adaora and Adanne, who were in high school, were busy studying, while the last born, Obiageli, was asleep. Ikenna didn't want them to hear their quarrel, so he decided to keep quiet. Inside, however, he was burning with anger and frustration. Chisom was very good at convincing people, even with lies. She could sell you water, claiming it was wine, and you would believe it tasted like wine. She was that good. Ikenna, on the other hand, because of their 10-year gap, his strength didn't match up to Chisom's energy and cunning. The next morning, Ikenna decided to visit Chisom's mother to confront her about Chisom's behavior. However, when he arrived, he saw how sick and weak she had become. His anger melted into pity, and he decided to let things be. But from that day onward, life in their house changed dramatically. They only spoke when necessary, and the silence between them was thick with tension. Ikenna couldn't shake off his suspicions about Chisom cheating on him, but he found no proof. The animosity between them grew, and they started fighting over the smallest things. Their once happy home was now filled with constant tension. Ikenna was still struggling financially, so he told Chisom that he's selling the third car. Chisom suggested that they sell the third car to her sister, who had a business and needed a vehicle. Ikenna agreed because he needed cash to cover most of the household expenses. At this time in their life, their second child, their daughter, Adaora, had passed her exams with flying colors. She was accepted to study medicine in a faraway city. Despite their conflicts, Ikenna and Chisom put their differences aside to support her. But because of their jobs, she didn't qualify for any bursaries or scholarship. Therefore, Ikenna had to pay for everything for the first year, hoping she would get a bursary or scholarship the next year. They parked the car and drove her to the city for enrollment. As they traveled, they tried to put on a united front for their daughter. No one would suspect that these two were constantly fighting. The car ride was mostly silent, except for their daughter's excited chatter about her future. One night, after supper, Ikenna received a call from an unknown number. When the man on the phone said who he was, Ikenna was surprised. It was the law student who was always at Chisom's house The one she hid behind about 2 decades ago. You know what, Ikenna? You have married a street mate. This woman is beyond repair. Your wife has been fooling you all these years. You don't know. Yes, she has my child. And she is denying me access to my child. Well, I just wanted to let you know that you have no wife in that loose woman. The man said before hanging up. Ikenna sat there, sweating and shocked. Chisom, who had overheard the conversation, quickly stood up and went to Adaora's room, locking herself in. Ikenna followed and tried to open the door, but it was locked. Chisom, open the door. We need to talk. You have so many explanations to give me, Ikenna shouted. But there was no response. That entire night, Ikenna couldn't sleep. He paced back and forth in their bedroom, his mind racing with so many thoughts. He sat down, then stood up again. Sat down, and then stood up again, unable to feel anything but numbness. He started thinking about who among their 4 children might not be his. The whole night, he was doing the math in his head. Was Chisom pregnant with the lawyer's child when I took her into my house? Is our firstborn, Amadi, not my son? Did she have lovers when she was studying nursing and teaching? What if none of these children are mine? Ikenna thought, his heart heavy with doubts. He got tired of thinking and finally fell asleep around 3 o'clock in the morning. But he still had to wake up and go to work. And when he left for work, Chisom was still locked in the other bedroom. Ikenna always came back from work later than Chisom because he worked in a far-away village. But that day, when he returned home, he found the house eerily quiet. He walked from room to room, realizing that Chisom and their 2 daughters, Adanne and Obiageli, were gone. She had taken almost all their belongings. Feeling a mixture of anger and sadness, Ikenna sat down on the living room couch. His mind replayed the events from the last few days, trying to make sense of everything. He knew he had to find a way to move forward, for himself and for his children. But the path ahead seemed more uncertain than ever before. Ikenna called the pastor to help resolve their issues. Well, they were somewhat close to the pastor, or at least Chisom was. But when the pastor summoned Chisom, she never went to meet him. Chisom liked to maintain a certain image of herself. She wanted everyone to see her as a virtuous woman who followed traditional values. So she feared that if the pastor heard the truth, her reputation would be ruined. She had even trained her children to see her as always right, and they were very obedient. The pastor eventually got tired and decided to let it go. Both Chisom and Ikenna stopped going to the church altogether. Feeling desperate, Ikenna decided to go to Chisom's family house and hold a family meeting. During the meeting, Chisom bluntly told everyone that she didn't feel anything for Ikenna anymore, ridiculing him for being too old for her. Ikenna had always been older, but this time, her words stung deeply. Chisom's mother and the rest of the family were shocked. Although Chisom was in her late 40s, making her an older woman too, they couldn't reprimand her like a child. So Ikenna left the meeting feeling humiliated and went back to the house. Their son Amadi had found a good job and had come back from the city to show his parents his new car. But Ikenna told Amadi briefly that his mother had left. So Amadi decided to visit his mother at his grandmother's house. But Chisom, however, told him a completely different story. Amadi, I left because your father was threatening to kill me. I could have died in his hands, Amadi, Chisom said, trying to justify her actions. Amadi was convinced and started doubting his father. But he still went back to his father's house and stayed there until he returned back to the city. Ikenna was heartbroken and not good at expressing himself or even arguing. Whenever the arguments got heated, he would just say, "Okay," or "Just leave it as it is, please." But unknown to Ikenna, Chisom had a policeman boyfriend who was advising her to get a protection order against Ikenna to force him out of the house. But the plan backfired when Chisom was advised to stay a certain distance from Ikenna, which meant she had to leave. Unfortunately, during this conflict, Chisom's mother passed away. Ikenna supported where he could, and even the pastor still supported the family. But after her mother's passing, Chisom's brother told her to pack and leave the house, because according to their tradition, the youngest son would inherit the parents' house. Besides, Chisom's brother explained that his wife and Chisom would likely fight if they lived together, as two women often don't get along under one roof. What do you mean by that? You want to kick me out of my own mother's house? I helped with everything here. I bought everything here, Chisom shouted, very furious. Chisom took everything she had bought for her mother when she started working, even the outdated furniture, just to spite her brother's wife. She then spoke to her elder sister, the one she sold the car to. Her sister owned properties she rented out and offered Chisom a small house to stay in temporarily while she looked for her own place. The house had only 3 rooms, and to Chisom, it was a huge downgrade. She felt she couldn't even invite her colleagues to such a small, unattractive house. All the while, she was looking for a way to get back to her own house. After almost a year, Ikenna realized that Chisom was not coming back or willing to sit down and talk. So, Ikenna filed for a divorce. But the divorce process became messy and nothing was getting resolved. Chisom even convinced Ikenna's older brother to take her side. Ikenna felt betrayed as his brother wanted him to leave the house so his children could inherit it. "Look, Ikenna, you should move out of the house," his brother said one day. "Chisom has a point. Your children need stability." "But this is my house too," Ikenna replied. "Why should I leave my house? Tell me why." Whenever Ikenna tried to explain his side, his brother wasn't convinced. Chisom was always more convincing. So Ikenna ended up not getting along with his brother because he always reported what Chisom said back to Ikenna. Ikenna, Chisom said you didn't send the children's monthly allowance. Why would you do such a thing? His brother would say, making Ikenna feel cornered. After a while, Ikenna eventually stopped picking his brother's calls. The divorce dragged on and on because Chisom wanted 50% of everything, including Ikenna's pension and the house. She even insisted, I deserve half of this house because I cannot let another woman use my kitchen. Ikenna tried to find a solution where everyone could live with what they had. He offered to compensate Chisom for the things she had added to the house. He also demanded a paternity test to help his case, which delayed the divorce for another year. During this time, their third child, Adanne, was enrolling in university to study medicine just like her older sister. Adanne went to enroll on her own, and Ikenna only paid half of the registration fees, leaving the other half for Chisom to pay. Mom, Dad only paid half of my fees, Adanne told Chisom over the phone sadly. Chisom, not wanting to spend her own money, made her son, Amadi, pay for Adanne's fees. Amadi, your sister needs help with her fees. You need to step up, Amadi, she said. Whenever Chisom wanted to communicate about the children's money issues, she would use Ikenna's brother to relay the message. And when the brother struggled to find Ikenna, he called Amadi and told him, Amadi, your father is not doing things right. He doesn't even speak to me anymore. Chisom was still staying in her sister's rental house. She would bring her policeman boyfriend to stay overnight. She had overstayed because she thought she would go back to her house sooner. Her sister wanted to rent out the house to generate income, so Chisom started telling Amadi to build her a house. Amadi, look at other children. No, just look at other children. They are building houses for their mothers, she said. What will people say when you work so well, but I don't have a house? Feeling pressured, Amadi agreed to build a small house for his mother. He explained, Mom, I will build a house in my name, and when you get your share of divorce, I will move in because I'm planning to get married soon. Chisom replied, You can't get married now. You cannot marry now, Amadi. You need to wait until my divorce is final. Amadi used his savings to buy land and building materials, sending the money to his mother. But when Amadi visited, he was surprised to find that the small house he had planned had turned into a mansion plan. But Mom, this is not what we agreed on. You know I cannot afford this, Mom. Amadi said, frustrated. Chisom had called her policeman boyfriend to help with the grand house plan. Feeling deceived, Amadi stopped sending money, thinking it was enough for a smaller house, while Chisom went ahead and built a smaller house, which her boyfriend claimed was his. Chisom didn't like that the house was in a remote village, far from town, unlike Ikenna's house, which was close to the town. Her heart still wanted the house Ikenna had built. She abandoned the house Amadi built, which he later found out was not even in his name, but in his sister Adaora's name. Chisom used to go to her former house to pick up some things because she still had the keys. Ikenna had no problem with Chisom coming to the house for her things, as he was focused on moving forward. As Chisom constantly visited the house with weak excuses, she brought the youngest daughter, Obiageli, who was in high school by now. During one of these visits, she found Ikenna and a woman in the house. Chisom's face turned red with anger. How can another woman use my house, my kitchen? Ikenna, she has to go. She has to go, Chisom shouted, storming into the house. The lady was just visiting, but she quickly left. Then Chisom and Ikenna started shouting at each other. Obiageli got scared and started crying. Then she called her elder siblings. She sobbed into the phone. After the argument, Chisom went back to the house where she was staying, packed her belongings, and drove back to Ikenna's house. She barged in and declared, "I am moving back in. You had your turn. Now it's my turn. You can leave, Ikenna. Leave." Their loud commotion had neighbors standing by their fences watching the drama unfold. "Chisom, when you left, no one asked you to go. No one told you to go. Did you expect me to be single for the rest of my life?" Ikenna shouted back, his frustration clear. Chisom glared at him. "This is my house too. That woman had no right to be here. She has no right to be here." Ikenna, exhausted from arguing back and forth, threw his clothes into the trunk of the car without even packing them in bags. He looked at Obiageli, who was watching everything. "Obiageli, my daughter, I'm leaving. Please take care of yourself, Obiageli," he said softly before driving off. Chisom moved back into the house, but the tension remained. Obiageli was confused and hurt by her parents' constant fighting and nagging. Ikenna, now renting a single room, was ready to finalize the divorce, willing to give Chisom whatever she wanted.